everyone. Welcome to LinkedIn Live. I'm always delighted when I get new guests on here and we have an interesting discussion plan. So I want to welcome Rebecca Hastings, who is an amazing recruiter. And we started talking a few months ago, and I absolutely love what she does. And we're going to talk today about sales skills in Scotland. As a quick introduction, because I know there are a couple of people watching who maybe don't know me, I'm Yekemi Otaru. I'm co-founder at Ducaro Limited, based in Aberdeen, and we are a sales enablement consultancy. And we work a lot with companies that have B2B sales functions, and we really help them get enabled and help them achieve their goals for the business. So welcome to Rebecca. Introduce yourself. Tell us.
Hi, Kemi. Hi, everyone. So I'm Rebecca Hastings. I'm the director and founder of the Listening Group. We work with technology companies typically, or e-commerce sometimes, high growth companies that are looking to build and scale new functions. We support them by finding their executives, senior managers, and the key hires through headhunting or creating recruitment marketing projects for them.
Fantastic. And how long have you been doing that?
So I have actually worked in recruitment, I think, for about 18 years now,
Wow.
which feels like a very long time. And in that time, I have covered loads of different roles. I've always loved recruiting sales roles. I do work on other opportunities as well. But yeah, most of the time that I have worked in recruitment has been laterally, executive search or running campaigns. I have worked in-house within businesses, heading up talent. So the approach I bring to clients is maybe a little bit more holistic, give them like some advice from, lessons learned as well.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us, Rebecca. I'm really looking forward to our discussion. And to everyone who's watching us at the moment, please feel free to put a comment in the chat. I'd love to know where you're watching us from, what city, what country. And if you are in sales, feel free to put your hand up. We would love to know if you're in sales. If you've got questions for myself or Rebecca as we go along, please feel free to put those questions as well. I'll make sure that we get to as many as we can. So, you know what I like to do, start from the very beginning. So tell us about your career journey and how did you end up doing what you're doing now? Where did you start from?
So it is like many people, mine's just been like a relatively lengthy journey now, but I started my career actually as an accountant working in tax. And about 6 months in, I realized I was wholly unsuited for this because the office was too quiet. I had to break the silence. And the only way I could think of doing this was to offer to make everyone a cup of tea. I think on like cup number 12. I thought, what am I doing? So I went off, went traveling, worked in yachting for a while. When I came back, I actually worked for a technology company in a sales role, but I'd really wanted to work in recruitment. I think that, I could see that was like a real passion for me, the idea of matching people, solving business problems at the same time and having all of the like people interaction. So I started my career in recruitment. Initially, I worked in admin, secretarial recruitment, then accountancy, and quickly moved into technology recruitment. And I have worked in that field ever since. So that would be, I think, technology recruitment at least 13, 14 years ago. And in that time, I'm really lucky to have worked with some amazing candidates and clients. Companies that, have, I've helped build teams that have gone through to really successful exits where, people at all levels have made some money in the business. And, it's been, a real privilege to be part of putting those people in place and seeing the impact that they've had over time.
That's the first time I've spoken to a recruiter and really kind of heard in what you were saying, your motivations for being a recruiter, right? Because I think, most people deal with a recruiter when they're looking for a job and it's all about, am I a right fit, sending the CV. But just hearing you talk about how you're actually helping companies solve problems, you're helping them grow, you're helping them usually at a critical point in their journey. And at a critical, I guess it's a critical decision. Who you hire is really critical. So I know you've touched on it a little bit, but what has been some of your biggest motivation? So at times when you've had some kind of challenge with recruitment or with a client or candidate, what's been that thing that's kept you going, around recruitment, that's kept you in this particular industry?
I certainly think that motivation has changed over time. There have, like, I don't know, I certainly wouldn't want to let any clients down. And, they're spending a lot of money on recruitment. It's a big cost for scaling or growing businesses. So like being invested in having, a successful outcome is super important, for, reputation and, um, doing the right thing. I think that what motivates me right now is I see, a huge opportunity within like the recruitment and executive search market for people to, adopt new ways of working in their businesses that will create much better candidate and client experiences. So, using proper marketing, working out, using data to create the right messages to go to the right personas, and it means you can turn around projects far more like effectively, much faster. There's a cost to not having somebody in a role, not just a cost of hiring people. And I think there's a huge opportunity there to make, a recruiter's role much more consultative, much more advisory, and them free up the, time in order for them to focus on that. So I think, leading the way in, creating the way that recruitment should be, I think that it's really hard to get the right person in front of the right company at the right time, but it shouldn't be as hard with all of the tools we have at our disposal now.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you hire quite varied roles, and you focus on technology companies. What would you say is unique about hiring for sales roles? Because I mean, I speak to startups and kind of bigger, SMEs, and hiring, especially that first salesperson, is always a big decision. And when you're at, I guess a turning point in your company where you're maybe trying to enter new markets or launch a new product, and you might be hiring sales or BD people, what do you find is specifically challenging about hiring sales roles within tech?
So there's a couple of things. Firstly, I think that confidence in making the right decision is a big challenge. I think that no role will have can have a bigger impact on a company's finances at certain stages, in the way that a sales role can, because it's not just the cost of hiring someone. The cost of a bad hire is even greater, because then you've got the opportunity cost of all the revenue that you're not getting by having the wrong person in place. So having the confidence to actually hire somebody can be really different. So there's definitely different kind of approach to like working out what someone really needs, what kind of salesperson is going to work for selling that product to those customers, and then making sure that the clients understand what they're assessing rather than just going on their gut. I think a lot of people go on their gut there. So confidence is one of the key challenges. And then I think, that whole bit where founders are giving up the primary sales role within their business, there is a sense of control, and that's completely understandable. As someone who has a business, I completely appreciate that. But how a founder sells a product is going to be different from how a salesperson does it. It's not a scalable solution, and trying to get people into that mindset where they understand that what works for them might not actually work for everyone else who's joining them moving forwards. So I think those are two of the key challenges and then in technology, people get hung up on how much they will, like, the salesperson will understand the product. And there are products that are really technical that require a depth of knowledge in specific areas, but the reality is people can learn a lot, and if you've got technical or pre-sales people who can support the process, it's not always a problem. The salespeople have a specific role within the business, and it's not to know everything.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, and I've written probably three things that you've mentioned that I would like to delve into a little bit more. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's watching now. We've got maybe a dozen or so people. If you got questions, based on what we're saying, please feel free to put that in the comments, and I will see them and address them. So, gosh, I want to go back to one of the things you said, which affect my kind of industry directly, is this whole idea of the founder's salesperson slash business owner role, right? And how easily founders almost like put their hand up and go, yeah, I'm not the right person to be selling going forward. We need to hire someone into the business. And some of the also thought that founders should be the salespeople in their business. I think there are some people that feel that way. How do you navigate those conversations when you're talking to founders who are maybe looking at sales in their organizations going forward? They're considering hiring a salesperson. They're a little bit worried about letting go of that, because at the end of the day, I think there's this feeling that if you are the founder of the company, then you should be the one selling. Do you have some thoughts around that?
Firstly, I actually think that in a startup, everybody is selling whether or not they realize it. Like they are, maybe reposting something on LinkedIn that the founder has written. So everyone is kind of indirectly involved in sales, whether or not they realize it.
Yeah.
Specifically, I think that the founder is like a founder selling everything is just not scalable. And a lot of the businesses that I worked with, they're venture backs. They've got their investors have got expectations about getting a return with so many multiples, and the starting point for making the realization setting that can't always stay with the founder, yet bring them in certainly at key points in the process, is when you work out what their revenue targets are and you work back from that, like what does that actually look like? If you've got to have a turnover of £1 million a year to have a certain valuation, then what do you have to do in order to do that? Is that achievable? If it's then suddenly going to be a 20 million turnover, and your product only has a certain value, what one person can do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there
No,
there
it's
are
really good conversations, isn't it? Because I bet you are, because it's what you said about being almost like a consultant in that conversation, right? It's not just we need this. It's almost like challenging that and saying, well, actually, if you are going from being a £2 million company to a £20 million company, you probably
Mhm.
need more than just you to achieve this.
Yeah, and then making them realize that how you get there requires like different skills. It's a team effort, and people will understand that they, like good founders, they want to hire people that will bring something to the table that they don't necessarily have. And if you break it down, what people are, what it takes to achieve, say that move from like 1 to 20 million, then it's not just, let's hire X number of salespeople. It's, what kind of marketing support is required? What is the like realistic capacity, for a technical pre-sales person? Do you need more than one of them? Should you outsource your lead generation? Should you like have an inside sales team or SDRs working for you?
Yeah.
And then do you need someone who's going to look after your sales operations and your CRM?
Yeah. No, those are really, really good questions. And another thing that kind of came to my mind when you were speaking is obviously this whole idea of skills and what skills salespeople actually need. So I think my business partner, Sarah Downs, she actually put a post out yesterday about, the whole idea that the people that are selling need to have this robust understanding of the technical side of what they're selling, and whether it's okay for, a salesperson not to necessarily be particularly, technical. And you were saying that, in some industries, yeah, you do, it's better if you do have that technical understanding, but it's not something to get hung up on because it's possible to excel in that area. What are some of the top sales skills that you're seeing Scottish businesses are looking for, and is that what they should be looking for? What kind of conversations are you having around that?
So there's a couple of different skills that are more in demand at the moment. One of them, which is like having, definitely technical people who can sell, but more, grow growth skills like within accounts, and making sure that the people who are, rather than having an account manager, have somebody within the team that is able to kind of like elevate the conversations and, build more trust and influence. And in those situations, in order to have the credibility, there are times when people do need to have more of a technical background, depending on the sector. In terms of like actual like skills, new business is always like really high up the list. And I'm hearing more people want to have, regardless of the role, someone who is competent and confident, putting themselves out there with thought leadership. Definitely being on video is a skill that is like totally new to so many people over the last few years. And it's not just like doing a product demo and a presentation, but being able to just interact, like, and build trust and rapport over video is slightly harder, because you have like a bit of cognitive dissonance due to like the delay, the lack of three dimensions that our brains are trained to experience. So definitely, social media skills really high up there in a way that they would not really have been considered. That would previously have sat with marketing more, but now the actual person who is doing the selling needs to be able to create content, write concisely, and be a bit more personal in how they put themselves out there. It's not all about marketing have said, this is the new feature, let's post such and such, now does like advanced filtering, whatever. That their people's attention, but we used to see a lot of that 5-10 years ago. It's now about being more relatable and still sharing your knowledge and demonstrating that credibility and expertise up front. And without that, then it's really hard to get inbound leads coming your way. I mean, obviously you want people who will generate leads for you, but it's not all it's not what salespeople do a lot of the time.
Yeah. No, all the stuff you were describing really feeds into like some of the stuff we do for our clients, right? In terms of supporting their sales teams. It's all about, I guess, what we've coined as social selling, and I know you're familiar with this term, and not focusing on features and functions, but being relatable and being able to build trust through video, being confident in that conversation, and being a good listener as well. I think are key skills that I think companies are looking for. I just wanted to acknowledge Ayodeji. You said, yeah, some of the stuff that you've been sharing is the phase that his business is at right now. So I'm glad this is just proving relevant. So if you've got specific questions for us, do absolutely let us know. Okay. So you talked a lot about, some of the skill set, being on video, social media, being able to interact. I also mentioned listening skills, those kind of things. How are companies currently, measuring or assessing whether a sales candidate has these skills?
I don't think huge numbers of them actually are, to be completely blunt. Like obviously you would, as a recruiter, I live on LinkedIn. I'm going to check somebody's LinkedIn profile out before putting them forwards. Tying it back to search, like before we're even at assessment, there are ways that, I can find somebody who has, spoken at a conference in your sector, like do like deep x-ray searches on things like SlideShare or podcast platforms, just to get that kind of like proof that somebody has been doing all of these things before I approach them and learn about them. But in terms of assessing people, you're not going to get any of that out of a typical 30, 60, 90-day plan. You have to, incorporate video into your process, even if you're going to meet people face to face. Interestingly enough, a few weeks ago, I did a quick poll on LinkedIn, and one of the findings from it was salespeople actually want to meet the decision maker who's going to hire them as early in the process as possible, rather than wait till the last hurdle. So even if you're going to meet someone for a coffee and have an initial chat, check the chemistry's there, you do need to do a video interview, definitely. And I actually think you need to, if you're going to give them a practical exercise, make it a little bit more around what are you going to do on social media for us. But that doesn't really cover the elephant in the room, because like anybody can sit there and say these are 5 posts that I would suggest, and
Mhm.
create pretty images in Canva that are online with the company's brand and all of those things to make themselves look good. But will they actually post them? Because I think that you like a lot of people have a fear of putting themselves out there still. Like there
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
that sense of, oh my God, people will judge me. What will they say? How
Mhm.
will they how will they react? What if I get trolled? And it's really understandable. And I think that just like the way that 15, 20 years ago, we would like, even 10 years ago, we like to see if like salespeople had signs of telephone adversity, we now need to start doing that for social media.
That's a really good point, actually. I think leaving social media out of the question when you're looking for the right salesperson is just, I mean, it's a big mistake, really. We have some data. I mean, we've done our own research, but we also have data from large organizations like Gartner that show that 80% of B2B interactions between a buyer and a supplier is going to be on digital channels by
Yeah.
2025. Now, that's not very far from now. That's 2.5 years, maybe less than that. And so if that's the case, then we do need to get far more comfortable with being online, far more comfortable putting ourselves out there. And it was the confidence thing you said, I think, at the very start of our conversation, is really about confidence. And in past conversations, Rebecca, we've talked about resilience a lot, the
Yeah.
ability to get back up when, even if someone makes a comment that it's, on your post that isn't nice, like, don't sort of
Mhm.
swear off social media after that kind of thing. It's really
Yeah.
about continue to pick yourself up, isn't it?
Totally. And that part, you can start to identify if you know how to ask the right interview questions. For years, like, we've all heard of like competency-based interviews, like tell me about a time, and then as a candidate, you're coached to, give the situation, task, action, result. That actually is just so flawed, because salespeople know what you want to hear. They can give you the answer, with a degree of credibility, even if it's not how they feel.
Yeah.
So there are other ways that you can structure interview questions and then assess people against that. That will make it much easier for you to know whether or not that person has the resilience in that situation. So the key to creating those questions is, first of all, to say, tell me about a specific time. You have to make sure that the person's going to be specific. Then throw in an obstacle. Don't ask people about good times in their life, and because then you're never going to learn how resilient they are. And then find out how they dealt with it. And you don't assess them necessarily on, the result was. You want to assess them against how hard they tried, even when things were really tough. And
Yeah.
did they go the extra mile? If someone didn't hit their target, but they tried 20 things that seemed sensible, and the odds were stacked against them, that's a bit higher than somebody who says, yeah, I hit my target, but it was a bit easy.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
salespeople change jobs an awful lot. I know we've discussed that.
Yeah, I was just going to say the average tenure of a salesperson is 18 months.
Yeah.
And that is a really short time, and it's not enough time most times for the salesperson to, or the company, to really get the benefit of what they've invested in that role. And there are a couple of reasons for that. I think from the big company side, some things they could be doing better to support salespeople, and
Yeah.
we've talked about that. And also from the salesperson's side as well. I think it's just one of those things in that profession. You go from company to company. I think you get a better salary as you move around as well. It's a bit like banking. When I was leaving school, banking was one where people just went from one bank to the other, and you could, have a better negotiation experience when you move from one bank to the other. It becomes senior banker, and then senior executive banker, and so on. So yeah, I mean, so sales is crucial. Like you said, it's the backbone of any private company, isn't it?
Totally. And we touched on earlier on, that confidence to hire and, what problems high growth companies have in particular. And one of them is performance management. And like performance management actually starts at the point when you create a job description, because any good salesperson is going to want to know what their targets are, what their expectations are, and how they're going to get there, and how they're going to get rewarded before they even consider applying for your company. If they're not asking those questions, then they're not they're not most likely to be serious about doing the work, or they're not engaged. So by working that out from the start, then it's much easier to know whether or not someone is being successful along the way. And do you need to have those conversations earlier, because you're just compounding the cost of a bad hire by keeping somebody in your business longer. But then equally, the value in that conversation is also like, well, if you're going to expect this much of somebody, you need to pay them this, or you need to give them this kind of support, especially if you're transitioning away from founder sales. They might not realize that you're going to need to, create a completely new playbook. Maybe the founders just run it all out of like some spreadsheet in Google Docs, and they've not got a CRM. They're not using HubSpot. You don't know. So being really clear about that up front makes a huge difference.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Rebecca. If you're interested in any of the things that we're speaking about, because there are a couple of things there that between Rebecca and I, we can give you resources and we can support you. So for instance, if you are a salesperson or you've got a sales team and you're thinking that this whole video and using social media to be relatable, and like Jock said, people buy from people. So it's really about making sure that you're connecting with your audience. If that's an area that you're looking to improve, or you've got a team that's looking to improve, I've just put a link in the chat to our next social selling program. It'll be online and it's in November. So if you check out that link, then we can, you get more information through that link, and feel free to message me about it. If you're looking to recruit salespeople or anyone actually within your technology company over the next few weeks and months, Rebecca is happy to chat you through what your business goals are and how recruitment can support you to achieve those goals. So I just want to say that quickly. And if you've got any other questions around that, let me know. In terms of CRM, so we are a sales enablement consultancy. So we partner with other companies that have different offerings that support that, right? So one of those partnerships is with a company called Membrane, and they have an amazing, I would call it a sales enablement CRM. It's not your typical CRM. It's really a coaching tool for salespeople. So if you're wanting to learn more about that, again, feel free to comment or just send me a message through the chat. So I had a couple more questions for you, Rebecca. So with all the work you've done, I mean, you've worked, so many years in recruitment, you've seen salespeople come and go. What would you say are the top skills that separate a great salesperson from everybody else?
So I think that you need to be smart, and I don't mean like book smart, but you need to be able to grasp concepts quickly and think on your feet. That's something which salespeople aren't often given credit for. You do need to be intelligent to be great at this. I think having like a really high level of emotional intelligence is going to help somebody build trust, build rapport, and make sure that their emotions don't get the better of them throughout the sales process. We've all been there where maybe our perception has taken over or something like that, and you can lose a sale because of that. I think that definitely resilience is like the top attribute beyond those that I think somebody needs to have, because you're going to get more rejection than you are successes most of the time.
I think that's the main thing that puts people off. I mean, I have to be honest, put my hand up. I avoided sales for most of my career. Every time someone tried to put me in sales, oh, you're good with people, go into sales. It's like, but at the end of the day, I found that I feel like the world is separated into two people, like people that can sell and people that can't. And if you're if you're running a business, there's so many opportunities to improve those skills, because you can learn all this stuff, and you can identify where you might have gaps, and it does make you more successful if you are able to not just selling items, but selling yourself, selling your idea, selling your vision, right? So I think that's really, really important. We've got a data-driven tool that we use to assess salespeople. So they could be candidates that are going for sales jobs, and the focus is on sales competency. And if you've got an existing sales team, we do an evaluation where we can understand what the gaps and opportunities are within that team, and then sort of help you close those gaps, whether it's through training, or yourself, someone like Rebecca can help recruit if there's a gap there that really needs someone to come in and fill it. So that's important to remember. If you do need support and help, I think you know where to go for that. You know that you can come to Rebecca or myself. There's a question on here, and I wonder if you can answer it. I think what Ayodele wants to know is, typically in Scotland, how are salespeople what's the sort of compensation package, and what's the perception of salespeople? I think it's a really good question. I think I said this to you the other day when we spoke, that sometimes people see salespeople as maybe not that important, or just a department people go to when something else didn't work out. What's been your experience around this?
So the compensation obviously depends on the role and the company and the sector, but typically, for say for example SDR roles, the bonuses for those have gone up over the last 18 months from what I've observed, in that maybe they would only have been like 15% of the total comp before. Now will expect maybe like it's 25% plus. Their value to the process increased. So basics for that can vary like massively depending on the company, but typically at the lower end, I would say you're looking at 25 to 35,000 for business development. New business roles, again, it massively will depend on the sector. There are some areas where people may get a basic of 30,000 and others 100,000 for depending on what it is they're going to be doing. But in terms of like overall compensation, then the companies that are really attracting the best people are looking at double OTE for their BDMs. So at least in that space. Where Scotland, it depends on the sector that you're in. But I think for sales leadership, sometimes our compensation can fall short of London, in particular at the kind of like sales director end of the scale, or for like C-suite. But hopefully that will start to improve for candidates as remote work has become more and more norm. And I think historically people in Scotland did tend to get paid less than London, because they're still, for a lot of companies, going to have to go down to London quite frequently in order to make pitches and do sales. So there was always like a cost seen, or London companies thought, well, I'll pay them less because they're in Scotland. I think that's starting to disappear to a certain extent. A good salesperson doesn't really matter where they are, as long as they're willing to go to the client as and when needed, is worth just as much. Doesn't really matter what postcode they live in. So I don't know if that answers Ayodele's question, but if he wants to get in touch with me about specific opportunities and specific benchmarking, or anyone else listening does, then more than happy to get some data together.
Fantastic. I know Ayodele is moving to Edinburgh, so I think that's where his questions are coming from. So feel free to get in touch with Rebecca. She'll be delighted to respond to your questions. So what is the future of sales? Based on the work you've been doing, what's the mindset of companies over the next kind of 12 months? What are we seeing?
So in terms of like the future of sales recruitment, I would say like candidates should be given more transparency. Like there's always been a little bit of smoke and mirrors around compensation when you're like not every company wants their sales salary and bonus and benefits out there. But I think with the reality is with sites like Glassdoor having so much information, actually you're better just to be really upfront with people and give them, you need to approach people with something a bit more compelling and thought out. Candidates are definitely looking for remote work where possible in sales. They don't, some, I think earlier stage candidates, they do want to go in and have like some hybrid mix, but there's definitely remote work is here to stay. Businesses need to be more transparent with candidates about what they are offering. And I think that they also need to be cognizant that, like even if the economy tightens up, we've changed from the last recession, 2008, 2009, where candidates, they really only asked me about what's the salary, what's the bonus, what's the notice period, what's the target, where is it located. Now there's like a million other questions on top of that. What's the culture? What are the tools? What's the budget? Where will I go? Who will I work with? Tell me about what that person's like to work for. Can you share some case studies with me? People expect so much more information before they'll make a decision about whether or not a role is right for them. Businesses need to be prepared for that and ready to see that as an opportunity. In terms of sales, I think there's always going to be a place for people and human interaction. Automation's really going to continue to take hold and change the role of a salesperson, but you just need to be really happy to put yourself out there in new ways if you're not already doing that.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's really great advice for anyone listening that is kind of, in sales or thinking about being in sales, or you're looking to recruit, right? If you're a business owner and you're looking to recruit a business leader, I think all these questions are great. And I've always felt that there's not enough support for salespeople just in general when you compare it to marketing, for instance. I think that sales, you have little bits here and there, and people tend to create little groups or membership organizations, but I don't see that the support is sufficient. And once the person joins the company, even that ongoing support and coaching is not always readily available.
And coaching makes a huge impact to a sales team. I have seen that, like from having worked inside companies, where coaching has been available, a lot more people have been able to accelerate their careers. And because it isn't always the person with the most experience that's the best salesperson, and giving people the confidence to move forward. But coaching is hugely important for a sales team, a valuable investment. You wouldn't go out there, buy a Lamborghini, leave it in the garage, never take it for a run,
exactly,
and like not look after it. So
exactly.
if a sales team is an asset, you need to invest in it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm dying to put this question up, Professor Imafidon. Thanks for your question. So he's actually put up two questions, and we talked about this earlier this week, didn't we, Rebecca, around some of the ways sales is seen. So he's absolutely right. Why is it, I guess sometimes, not all the time, seen as an optional soft skill as opposed to being kind of a main competency of someone, and actually, putting it to the forefront and supporting it. Why do you think that is, that it's seen as an optional soft skill sometimes?
Because I don't think that a lot of people have considered it as a profession because it doesn't have an academic background to it, basically. You wouldn't put down finance as a soft skill, you'd get shot by an accountant.
Yep.
So it's it really
Absolutely.
is like a lack of understanding of the complexity of what's involved in a sales process. And I think that in some areas like of society, sales is undervalued. I don't understand why at school, when it's careers time, they don't say this is how much you can earn if you're really good at these jobs, and they put sales up there. I think more people be like, oh, I might want some of that. How do I, you know, it can be an absolute game changer for somebody who, you know, hasn't had, you know, the upbringing which has allowed them to, you know, go and do like a medical degree or something, but is still really smart. You know, not everybody wants to be super academic or has the same opportunities in life. I think, it's not a soft skill. I think there are soft skills around it, like building rapport, building trust, listening. Those are soft skills. So sales is many soft skills, but also some pretty hard ones. You know, sales, you know, being good at sales from my experience and knowledge, it takes a lot of discipline to log everything on your CRM so that people know what's going on and so that you can, forecasting is tricky. Forecasting accurately is harder.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, well, I already said that at the beginning of my career, I always saw sales as, you know, something that I didn't want to be labeled. And I knew so many salespeople around me who would actively tell the marketing team not to put sales on their business card. So even though their job title was sales, you know, they didn't want that actually on their business card, because again, there's a perception of sales. When you say you're a salesperson, sometimes it gives the impression that, oh, you're going to try to sell me something. Oh, you're not going to be completely honest. And it's bizarre because without sales, we wouldn't have an economy that can go forward. I mean, it's just,
I know, like 1 in 10
interesting.
people in the UK are involved in some kind of sales role.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
a lot of people.
it's a lot of people, and it's apparently 1 in 9 in the US.
Mm. I can believe the US is higher. I did a little exercise when I was preparing for this live. I looked at how many sales roles were being advertised in Scotland, and I only looked at LinkedIn actually, so it's a conservative number. So there are over 9,000 sales roles being advertised in Scotland, and most of those companies are between kind of those 50 employees and 1,000 employees, which I thought was quite interesting. The smaller companies are probably maybe, you know, maybe it's like what you said at the start, maybe startups, and everyone's a salesperson or the founder is a salesperson, and then you get to this inflection point and you then need to grow. So this is absolutely the time to be thinking about sales skills, what you need in your organization. If you're a founder, a business owner, or a business leader wearing the sales hat, get yourself assessed, get support, look at coaching as an option. If you're looking to hire salespeople, make sure that you're considering your business objectives over the next, you know, couple of years, and you're talking to someone like Rebecca who can really start to consult with you around what it's going to take for you to achieve your goals. Did you want to add anything to that, Rebecca?
No,
Before we
I think
finish?
I think you've covered that off really succinctly and clearly. It's amazing that there's so many opportunities for sales at the moment. I think that people who people are like more open to people entering sales from other careers just now, certainly in earlier stage roles. And I also think that even at the senior end, you know, going back to what I said about, you know, almost like consultative selling into large accounts, you know, if you're technical and you want to move into a sales role, there is an opportunity for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't worry about not knowing everything. You can get support. You know, like you were saying, your experience when there's been coaching within an organization, it's made such a difference. I've benefited definitely from coaching, and I'm still learning. I still get scared making a sales call or approaching someone, but the point is to push through that and still do it anyway. That's really the point.
Yeah, definitely. And also, you know, make sure that you are visible online in, you know, in the right kind of ways. If I think that that's something which can really help candidates set themselves apart if they are looking for a new opportunity. You know, make sure that it's not enough now just to have like a professional looking LinkedIn profile. Make sure that you're talking about stuff that's relevant, you're contributing to other people's discussions, you're maybe posting some original content, or you might just not get a look in for some jobs now.
Yeah. Well, I'm suspicious of anyone who doesn't have a LinkedIn profile. Like, I always check people out after I meet them, or if I'm going to meet them. And if I can't find them on LinkedIn, I'm going, are they real? Do they actually exist? And I'm sure recruiters and hiring managers are doing that all the time as well.
Yeah, it is. And I, it's in the way that I would be like suspicious of a recruiter that didn't have a LinkedIn profile to a certain extent. But there are still some people who believe that it is, LinkedIn is a distraction, but actually,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a necessary business platform now.
I feel like that could be another live. Is LinkedIn a distraction? Yes, we can definitely chat about that. Listen, it's been really good to chat to you, Rebecca. I've learned so much.
Thank
And thank you
you.
for everyone who's joined us. If you're watching now or if you're watching this back later, I really appreciate it. If you've got other questions or comments, do feel free to keep putting them on, and Rebecca and I will see them and get back to you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Bye.
It's been wonderful. And happy to answer any other questions offline if people want to message me.
Fantastic. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.